Okay, we're recording. All right, so now I'm going to do a screen share.
Testing out your seeing if we're sitting hard. Otherwise, I will have to send a note from Sadhguru about why it's important. Kind of. Let's just remind him about, he's very clear, he's like, well, do some statements. To make yourself alive and vibrant.
Okay.
You train your body, sit like the yogi.
All right. Can everybody here see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can all my friends online see the PowerPoint?
Yes. Yeah, well, I'll have to repeat the question. For those of you that can see the PowerPoint that are online, can you just chime in? I heard Aubrey say yes.
Yes, I can see it. Dawn.
I can. This is
Okay,
great.
Dawn.
I can.
Excellent. Perfect. Okay, we got everybody.
Can we turn that one off so we don't have feedback?
That's all I got right now. Okay. All right, friends. So how we're going to do this is everybody can keep themselves on mute. That would be great. And if you do have a question, take yourself off mute and ask. And Casey's going to begin.
Thank you. My name is Casey, and I am a practitioner of Jyotish, which is one of the Vedic sciences that relates to astrology, cosmos. And I was certified through the American Academy of Vedic Art and Science, which is founded by Sam Jeppy. And my background is in drafting and structural engineering. And I came to Vedic astrology through just kind of chance. I was in a group and of just different people doing different modalities, and this group had like Reiki healers and had tappers, like EFT tapping, and one of the people in this group was a Vedic astrologer, and I was curious, and so just got a reading, and it's pretty mind-blowing what happened that day. And so I took my background of kind of science and engineering and wanted to study how this all worked, and started making just a blueprint of how this all works. And so that's what my purpose has been since that time, is just bringing all the fundamentals in and be able to share what I've learned. So what I really love about Vedic science is how it's all connected, and all of the Western modalities that I was part of seemed like they kept saying universal law, but there was no structure. It wasn't grounded in anything that you could kind of sink your teeth into. So with the Vedic sciences, it was really good because there's underpinning principles that are consistent through yoga and Ayurveda and Jyotish. And so that's kind of what we're going to look at today, is just the background and some of the common principles.
This is not going further. Right.
Sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, there we go. We're getting it. So first, before we even start talking about what Jyotish, is we just want to kind of set the frame. This is probably a recap of what you learned last night, but I'll just do it from my perspective so you can see. So the Western versus Eastern perspective. In the West, we kind of look at the world as if we are the body and that our body has thoughts and emotions, and spirit is something kind of abstract and difficult to believe, let alone experience. So if it's not something we can grab a hold of and feel through the body's senses, it's easily dismissed as unreal. And in the East, it's completely the opposite. Spirit is said to be the point of origin for everything in physical existence. And in reality, everything in physical existence is only an illusion of the mind. So in fact, we're experiencing life in a physical body through the senses is due to a universal law called karma, which is the wheel that drives illusion and keeps us trapped in a belief of that we're separate from the cosmos, and what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell is reality. Okay, so in the West, we kind of operate through this physical, what we can touch and feel, and then there's thoughts and feelings and all that, but what it all comes from is difficult to grasp from that perspective. But in the East, they flip that around and say that everything that's metaphysical, invisible, that energy is what creates reality. And so that's why I have this little quote here. It says, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. And I think I saw that on the slide last night. So without making this vital paradigm shift, first and foremost, everything you learn will be built on top of a shaky foundation. It's really important and not to be overlooked, but it is something you can do because it's based in truth and you can prove it to yourself. That's what we call Dharma in Vedic science. So just to kind of give the practical example, when you're tracing the process of manifestation backwards from an outcome, the outcome originated from an action, and that action originated from a thought or an idea. And that thought and idea kind of originated for something, but we don't really know what that is, right? And this is what all the Vedic sciences are trying to teach us, is this is where it comes from. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions? Good. All right. So I introduced these words called karma and dharma.
We did a good job with these yesterday.
You did? Okay.
I think so.
Good. So just to kind of recap what we just talked about with the spirit becoming form, right? In quantum mechanics, we learned right at the beginning of 1900 that what we thought was everything was built on atoms, right? Isn't really, when we look at it really close, it's not really a structure at all. It's just energy in a state of vibration, right? So there's this experiment called the double slit experiment, which if you look that up on YouTube, it's really cool to look at. But what it proves is that the particles themselves operate like a wave until somebody watches or observes it, and then it acts like a particle. So this point of everything's a wave, which is energy and vibration, and then the observer sees it and it becomes matter, right? This is the Purusha, which is unmanifest, and the Prakriti, which is structure and particles and matter, right? So that's just kind of how to bridge the science and the spiritual part of it. So when we're upstream from thought, we are in the world of karma and dharma, right? So karma is a word that we really don't use properly in modern day society, because it's like this, what do we call the wheel, the horse and the punishment? Yeah, it's this horse and carrot, or the stick and carrot, right? So we say it's good karma, bad karma, but really what karma is at its essence is actions and results, the cause and effect, right? And so all of right now is the culmination of everything that came before it, right? We're experiencing this moment as a result of the actions we made all day long that brought us here to this spot here or wherever you are. And so I say, for example, we are born at a certain time in a certain location from the sperm and egg of two individuals that have taken actions in their lifetime that led to reproduction. We're born as the byproduct of their actions, history, and genetics. That's our karma at birth. We also create karma every moment of every day because we're taking action in the world, and those actions are creating future outcomes. Karma isn't bad or good, just like gravity isn't bad when you fall over and hurt yourself, or good when your body stays on Earth instead of flying into outer space. It's just natural order of things, a universal law, and that's where it relates to Dharma, right? It's the natural operation. So Dharma, that word doesn't really have a perfect translation in English, but it refers to truth, cosmic order, and the way things are supposed to be. So when you hear a lot of what's your Dharma, right? And when someone's asking about your Dharma, they're asking about what you're uniquely designed to contribute to the world and accomplish in your lifetime. But all universal laws are an example of Dharma because they represent the way things are supposed to be. So space, gravity, electromagnetism, planets and moons orbiting the solar system, everything that was discovered rather than invented is an example of Dharma. That make sense? Okay, any questions?
We'll come back to, because I think if you're hearing the karma piece, I think it's important to also speak a little bit about, you talked about the two parents, but let's also think about the individual's own soul, because that brings its own set of past karmas with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's actually 3 dimensions that come together in that regard. So once the person is born, or actually a conception, then you have those 3, not just the 2. If that's fair.
That is fair, yeah. Okay. So the next part is, how is Jyotish related to yoga and Ayurveda? So
From your experience.
From my experience. From my experience. So the unifying purpose of all Vedic sciences is self-realization, right? So that's the goal of every Vedic science, is to know yourself at that Sanatana Dharma, right? I want to know, I don't want to just think about this soul or experience it through the concept of mental. I want to be able to experience it, right? To know it. So we need to break free from the illusion of physical existence and become aware of our true nature as a spiritual being. So with the help of Ayurveda, we are able to maintain a properly functioning vehicle for the spiritual process, because the thing that has the most pull on consciousness is the physical body, right? And the heavier the need of the physical body, the heavier the pull on your consciousness, right? So think about when you're like really, really sick, for example, you can't think about anything else but the sickness, right? And so that's an imbalance, right? And the Ayurveda is about balancing the imbalance so that we can operate as lightly as possible, right? And then yoga gives us practices to align our body and mind with the spirit, right? So we want to become so present with this body that we go, holy shit, I'm not that, right? That's what we want to do. That's the goal. And then Jyotish gives us the blueprint and timing for what is happening in our life and why. Okay, so it's really the science of karma. So the first mention of Jyotish comes from the Rig Veda, which is the oldest text on the planet. Did you guys talk about Rig Veda? Okay, so these are ancient texts that are thousands of years old, probably 5,000 or more. And they are rituals and chants and mantras, and the Jyotish part of it is about the timing when you do the certain ritual. And when you do it is when everything aligns, right? In the sky and in yourself. So describing the correct timing for rituals and ceremonies, and each of these primary Vedic sciences, yoga, Ayurveda, and Jyotish, operate under shared principles. These principles are described in the philosophy of Vedanta and Samkhya, which reflect ideas that emerge from the study of Upanishads. I made this little diagram that you may or may not have seen before.
Yep, they have it in their manual.
Okay, and this is just a helpful little tool to help you see that how it all gets structured, right? It's my favorite thing is having little diagrams that you can see. So, like I said before, you can trace an outcome to an action and the action to a thought that led up to it, but tracing the thoughts or ideas to their source and origin is where people often get lost. Samkhya philosophy gives us a roadmap for the entire process of manifestation. According to the ancient seers and sages, karma is the source of thought patterns called samskaras. And many of those tendencies are imprinted on your mind at the moment of birth. Your astrological birth chart is for over time. So we're born cosmos are aligned with the karma we came here to experience. So moment first breath is vital, right? That is where we start as a being in physical form, right? And so at that moment of first breath, we are the most impressionable that will ever be in our life, right? So that the whole cosmos was imprinted on in our psyche at that moment. And so by reading the sky and our place on Earth and the solar system that creates life, right, we can pick apart each component of ourselves and how, if it's operating with ease or with difficulty. And so I'll get to that when I do the chart, as far as getting into that.
I was just interested in more about how this is a blueprint and a schedule for karma
Exactly.
ripening over time, which
Yeah.
allows us to understand that there is something larger operating,
Right.
and that we think that we're in control, because one of the concepts we talked about yesterday is the moment you realize you don't have control, the better off you are. And so the Jyotish science gives us that piece that is like, actually, there's something that's operating. It doesn't mean that you don't have a say in that process, but there is a map.
And it's just like Dharma, right? Where that's the first question that often comes out is, what about my free will, right? And just like we follow a pattern of our life, we're a baby, we're born, and then we are a child, and then we're a teen and an adult and all that stuff. That's Dharma, right? We're going to follow that procedure, that process, regardless of how much you will that to not happen, right? So it doesn't remove free will, but it exists beyond free will, right? So that's that difference.
Let's come back to that for a moment, because, I want you to respond to this. That is depending upon the degree to which you are aware of your Dharma, if you're going to follow your Dharma. So I think we're also talking about here that the energetics that come from the time of birth are directing things, in a sense, will it then plays a role in that, but also the awareness that one has, if in fact they develop it, it can then understand and address these samskaras or these karmic pieces that keep arising.
Right. So we've got a purpose and identity and all of that, right? Our dharma is trying to happen. But sometimes we say, I don't want that to be that. I want to choose what my life is, right? And so you're kind of pushing upstream, right? Where you're like, I don't want that to be me. I want to be something different, right? And so as you're doing that, you're fighting the current of karma and dharma, right? You're creating more karma for yourself by operating against dharma, right?
Well, and this becomes the basis of yoga, because I mean, everybody in the class last night was talking about why they're here. So one of the things, what prompted them to be here? Now, from your perspective, would it be that stars were all aligned at this point in time, and the planets and that kind of thing, and so it said, you must go to yoga training? Or where did will fit into this? And where did their awareness of, based upon, again, whatever has been manifesting in each of you? So, I mean, there's this interesting mix, like a soup, really,
Right.
in a way,
And
trying to make sense out of this soup.
right. So
Can I
let's say,
interrupt for
yeah,
one
sure.
second? Can you just make sure that the folks online can hear these questions? Say, folks online, can you hear these
Hey,
questions?
everybody online, can you hear Michael's questions? Can you just chime in real quick?
Not really.
Okay. So Michael's been asking about whether or not in your birth chart, it would say this person's starting yoga, right?
On this day.
And the answer to that would be, if the person was, this changed my life, I was completely transformed by this yoga training, I would be able to say it all lines up, right? But it meets you wherever you're at, right? And so what we would say is, the answer is, there's different things, right? There's your birth chart, which is going to be your tendencies overall, right? And the lessons you're here to learn, whether they're with ease, right? And when you're coming into yoga, you're becoming aware, which helps all of that might have otherwise been difficult become more easy, right? So the answer is, yes, I should be able to see that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So Casey, what we'll do for questions that come here, we'll just have you repeat the question for
Yeah.
folks as we go along.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oops. I'm gonna skip to this one. I'm gonna go to this one first. So what I've got here is a diagram. This is my birth chart, actually. So I'm gonna say, why is the Vedic birth chart important? So this chart is a diagram of the solar system and the observable relationship between the planets and the background stars at the time and place of your birth. So think of it as a blueprint of your metaphysical DNA, or in Vedic terms, a map of your karma. So Jyotish is a symbolic language that originates from the Rig Veda. And this chart is saying there are 12 constellations that form a band around the sky, right? And each one of these boxes is one of the 12 constellations, right? And those are fixed, right? Just like in the sky, that always stays, that's the fixed thing that gives us perspective on where everything else is moving. And then within each one of these 12 boxes, there are planets that appear in front of the constellation, right? So if you look in, can you see that? Here, I've got a bunch of planets in Capricorn, right? And then I've got a bunch of planets in Virgo. So that has an interpretation, right? And I won't go into that.
Waiting for you, Casey.
So in Western astrology, the primary focus is on your sun sign, right? But with Vedic astrology, we want to begin with the rising sign, or ascendant. It shows the intersection point of the earth and observable sky, which is the horizon, during the moment of your first breath, which corresponds to the intersection of body and spirit. Earth, sky, body, spirit, those things are related. So think about it just for a minute, that the sun goes through this background stars over a period of 12 months, right? So it'll be in that sun sign for 30 days, right? A whole month. So everybody born within that month isn't the same person, right? So what we've got to do is narrow it down to a real dial into the exact point of time. And that's what this is the rising sign is, and as the earth is turning and the solar system is doing its thing, this is the point of intersection. And so that this represents the where here it goes. So in 2 hours, so it's a 2-hour window, right? So that's much more specific and narrowed in. And so at that particular moment, the rising sign facilitated the process of your physical manifestation. So it shows the baseline qualities of your conscious awareness as a spirit has taken physical form. So if we examine the qualities of your rising sign, it illuminates a deeper truth of who you are and why you're here in a physical body. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so astrology or signs. Okay. Okay. So usually when you're looking at one of the sun signs, there's a list of verbs. But in Vedic astrology, each of those signs is an environment, right? And that environment's made of different qualities that we explore in Samkhya philosophy, right? It's got a polarity, so it can be masculine or feminine, moving out into the world or receiving from the environment. And then there's the Tamas, Rajas, Sattva. You guys learned about that yesterday. Okay, so these are different modes of operating. So for example, Tamas, we're gonna feel like we've got to remove problems or avoid problems or prevent problems, right? And then in Rajas, we want to experience pleasure and desire and all prominent. Share something with somebody, pleasure. And then is where we feel and beyond the troubles and the desires of the world. And so those are the three different qualities, and we can go over those qualities later, okay? But each one of the signs is a different combination of those qualities, right? And then each one of the planets represents a different component of our consciousness, right? Just for example, the planet Venus is related to our it's where we kind of have certain things that are important to us, values, and then being able to accommodate another person and their values and trying to find that shared purpose, right? So that planetary energy is important in anyone having a relationship. You've got to have that. So if Venus is in a place in the sky that isn't coherent with that, wanting to do that, or so let's just say, for example, Virgo, which is very nuts and bolts, and it's where we kind of notice everything that isn't right? And we have a little, so you put Venus in there and we notice everything that's wrong with our relationships, right? And so that's where it's trying to do that job of being able to accommodate and share and know what you want and what I want and be able to find that common ground. Virgo always sees the disconnect there, and it has trouble staying present and operating in that. So that's just an example, okay? So there are a few other important differences between Jyotish and Western astrology that are important distinctions that need to be explained to anyone who's familiar with, if not attached to their Western sun sign personality. Jen, calm down over there.
So let's take Jules' understanding and your, you brought it up, your sign. Well, I mean, you acknowledge the fact that you are, you know, aware of
It's on
Western astrology.
the Capricorn, Cancer.
Okay, so with
Let's
that
make
said,
sure we get the question.
Yeah.
well, I was going to
Right,
pose my
he'll do the question then one.
So based upon what Jules is saying, that she is a Capricorn,
Cancer. That is what I know. I don't know everything. But
Okay,
like
but-
my sun, moon, and rising, which I don't know if moon is something else or
Yeah.
that's what I've read it to be.
Okay, so from a Western standpoint, so based upon what she's saying from a Western standpoint, and going back to your clarification of qualities, I'm just curious how you might now explain the differences based upon this, and maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on the qualities or the characteristics that you're leading to, like descriptors that come if you're a Cancer or Capricorn from a Western standpoint.
Cancers are
Start with Capricorn, because that's what you said.
yeah, that's my son's in January. This isn't like qualities that I hold of all of them, like combination of all of the things, but I don't know a ton about Capricorns, but Capricorns, except for we like to be organized. Like I wish I was more organized. Like all the time, I'm always trying to do more hard worker, like that kind of like person. Always want to take care of things and stuff like that. But honestly, I don't know a ton about them except for what I am and what I read here and there. And I don't always take that as like the truth because I don't know my sources all the time. So that's what I know of my Capricorn.
Okay, so the question is, how would you say that in the Western sun sign, why do the qualities,
Like the traits.
why are the traits that way? Okay, and that's a good question, and I don't know the answer as far as why they have those traits, or if Western astrology even has answers for why Capricorn is the way it is.
I don't know where if I'm reading it's Western astrology.
Right.
Who knows?
So that's one of the differences, is that the Y is plugged into the qualities, right? To the Samkhya, right? The Tamas, the gunas, the elements, and those kind of things. And they do say it's a fire sign, and so that's there, but some of it is, it's lacking, right? You see it like there, where's that thing that tells us that, right? And when you're studying these things, it's like lots of other modalities where you're like, it's hinting at something, but where is it? Where do you get your fingers into that, right? And that's where it's just like, it's gone because the Alexandria library was burned down, and the religions destroyed all the texts and all that stuff, so it had to like reinvent itself after, and they had little scraps of what they knew before in the ancient cultures, but they had to kind of refigure it out, right? But luckily, India was able to preserve all that. It was lost for a while, but they found the text again, right? So they've been able to do that. So hopefully does that answer your question?
Coming back to this, so from a Western standpoint, Jules is like, well, I'm a Capricorn.
Right.
But from a Jyotish standpoint, that's not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily the
Okay.
case. And that's what we'll talk about here, is
Okay.
what the difference is. So other than the fact that Jyotish is designed to fit seamlessly together with yoga and Ayurveda as we navigate the spiritual process, the most fundamental difference between Western astrology and Jyotish is the way we measure the location of objects in space. So in Western astrology today, like it's the So it's Aries, right? That would be your sun sign. If you were born today, you'd be an Aries sun sign.
In the West.
In the West.
Okay, but 2 days ago, the 19th, what's today?
Last. Yeah. So in Western, this begins when the Earth vernal equinox point, which is the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere, because Western astrology was designed as a way of fixing the calendar to the seasons, right? Yeah, think of that was important back then, right? If they had lost that connection between what we see and what the seasons are, you'd be planting everything at the wrong time because the seasons aren't connected to what we're looking at, right? So they were trying to set this calendar. This is what, like 500 AD, right? So we didn't know much. We were trying to operate and plant and do all those things that we do with the seasons. And that's where this came about. And the vernal equinox and the constellation of Aries occupied the same section of the sky. So that's why they called the beginning of spring Aries, right? So as time marches forward, though, the observable sky and the seasonal indicators are slowly drifting apart due to what we call precession. Right now, science says that that's due to a wobble in there. But yeah, like there's a wobble, so the North Star is kind of going like this over time, over like 25,000 years. That's how long it takes to go backwards through the zodiac. But Veda says we're part of a binary system, and that there's another sun that we're actually moving with, which is actually really very common in the universe. So the rate of separation between the seasons and where the sun hits Aries is drifting apart 1 degree every 72 years. And right now it's 24 degrees apart, right? So right now the start of Aries in the tropical zodiac is, it just, like the sun just hit Pisces 4 days ago in sidereal, which is measuring by the stars. So Jyotish calls this distance of separation ionoption. So Jyotish maintains that Aries always stays in the same alignment with the portion of space that the constellation occupies, because it was designed to complement and explain what we're seeing in the sky, okay? Vedic science has a much longer background in history. So I said 5,000 years before they even wrote it down, which, like, they didn't write out the day before they wrote it down. They knew it for a long time before that. So it has a much longer history and background. So they understood that this was happening, right? That over time, these seasons and what we're looking at is different. So they accounted for that. So the ancient seers and sages explained that constellations are energetic environments that change the behavior of planets who occupy them. So the qualities of each sign are also qualities that we find in Samkhya philosophy, such as polarity, that's the masculine, feminine, the gunas, which is that danger, body, then mind and pleasure, and then sattva, which is spirit, right? And then it's the elements also, which is fire, earth, air, and water. So as we watch the planets move through the sky, we observed that the corresponding force within our body and mind corresponds, goes above, so below, right? Each one planet is not just abstract, it's also in operation, consciousness. In your book, I did a little intro to and I was talking about the sun, right? If we just want to stick to the sun, because that's something most people know, like sun sign and what's the sun. Sun is the outward projection of energy, right? The sun in the sky has no receptive qualities. It's just pouring out heat, and right? So that corresponds to that is radiating out, right? Self-expression, right? So it's birth, it'll appear authentic the situation, because I think that this will get me approval, this will get me security, this will get me what I want, this will help me, right? They just, I'm me and that's it, right? You can live with it, right? So when you see somebody with a really powerful sun, they don't, that's what they do. Right?
Okay, so let's come back to that.
Okay.
Because this again is what yoga, now remember, if we come back to yoga, yoga is teaching us to become aware. And to become aware, and if we take the Jyotish, so the Jyotish, we have this way of being, but the yoga is helping us to really unpack and understand our relationship to ourselves,
Right.
and to the larger world. So in a sense, you might have a powerful sun, but if you do your yoga practices sufficiently, you will start to discover that you can't be sun on everybody all the time, because you will just create misery and frustration and
Exactly.
problems.
Right.
So you have to learn to counter your sun a little bit to balance it out. Fair?
Can you repeat that?
So Michael's talking about how in yoga we have to, we're trying to embody that sun, but we also have to understand that we can't just be so powerfully ourselves that we burn everyone else to a crisp, right?
So yes. So in a sense, yoga is helping us to
Not burn people.
Bring
come
it.
to terms.
Right, just like we split it up, right? We can't have the sun shining on us all the time. It has to go up and down and dark and light, right? We have to have that balance, right? Just like we can go out and do activities, spending time alone, going to sleep, right?
That's what we learned through yoga. That is how you're. That's
Yeah,
what
so
you're
my point is, if we just assume,
Right.
Oh, this is where the Jyotish comes into play with yoga. You understand the Jyotish piece, you understand the genetic makeup and the influences. Now, as you go through yoga, you are helping to unpack and to change. So you're becoming aware of who you are and what is underlying that. But then how do you now go about relating to this larger scheme with all of these other players? You can't just be the sun.
Right.
Well, you can, but that is not going to be respectful of all of the other entities that are out there.
Right, it's not the only object in the solar system.
Yes.
Right?
And then what yoga and Jyotish do is it gives you Jyotish, or the astrology part will give you a roadmap, and then the yoga and Ayurveda give you like another personal. Like they're all three roadmaps that if you can align them together correctly,
Right, yoga gives us, here's how to do it, here's how to do the sun
I think
properly.
of it this
Right.
way.
Yeah, how to do
I
it
would
properly.
characterize it as in, if you think that it is, if you want to use roadmap for the Jyotish, okay, that's your road,
Right.
that's your,
Yeah.
and then yoga is your guide, and Ayurveda is your provision. And those would be the three things that I would contend would create a picture.
Right.
And so if you have a crappy or crappy provisions,
Or crappy
you're going to
map.
continue to go through the karmic issues that never address them.
Just to stick with the sun, right? Let's say someone's got the sun in Libra, right? For example, Libra is about being able to share and to be able to maintain balance, and then kind of knowing what the other person wants and accommodating their needs, right? That's what Libra is. That's the stage. That's the kind of environment it creates, right? So when the sun goes there, it's like, do I shine or do I not? Asking permission. And so that's where it's, if that's in your chart, I would say that's, you have to learn those lessons the hard way, right? That some people just know how to be themselves, but they don't overbear everybody. They're not, that sun process flows naturally, right? If someone's got a strong sun in their chart. But in this one, it's like I hide my power. I ask for permission. I feel like maybe I will act this way to get what I want, and then act like that to do another thing, right? So it's just that there's stuff to unpack, right? And then yoga would help us be able to do that, right? To be like, oh no, that's what I'm doing, right? Because some people can't even see that that's what they're doing.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
So, well, the difference between then Western and Jyotish is that we are looking at our Western map, or we are looking at the map. Is that what you're saying? Or
No,
a
I'm saying
misinformed map?
it's a map that's not designed to look at your karma,
Okay.
right? It would be things that reflect the right now Aries, spring, right? So the sun sign would be all the qualities of spring. Now, if I were to look at karma and your sun's in Pisces, that's a whole different story. So, I know what it is. I haven't studied it, but the difference is this is plugged into karma and how things are unfolding. For
And that's why you continue to say that it's Jyotish. If you're looking at Western, it will never match up with yogic.
Correct. Yeah.
Keep talking. With a yoga, that it's going to be necessarily going to be seeing ourselves in a big individual. So that is helpful. Just we want the joke. So, okay. Yes.
I would like to take it way more. You said earlier that there's another sun. That sun would be like the master sun of all solar systems, or what do you think?
Oh, you're talking about where we're part of a binary system? Is that what you're talking about? That would just be explain the reason why the seasons and the stars are kind of, it's the precession, right? The equinox is separating from the stars. And that's because our solar system has motion also, right? So that's what that's saying. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah,
And
so
that
there's
other,
another sun that our
there's
solar
another,
system is.
that's theory,
Okay.
right? It's theory right now. We don't know it,
Got it. Yeah.
but that's what they've been saying, right? That's what they've been saying for thousands of
Once
years.
again, you just go back to Star Trek. If you ever watch an episode of Star Trek, you will see that there are multiple suns on planets.
Some energy healers call it the great central sun. I don't know.
Right, and just like the solar system is also moving around the galactic core, right? The Milky Way is this big spiral, right? So there's several different motions, but we don't need to worry about all ones. There's certain ones we need to worry about and certain ones we don't, okay? Yes.
Jyotish take the wobble, or whatever you call it, in account.
They call that the Ayanamsha.
So what you're, if I understand the difference, then Western astrology doesn't have a lineage and it's fixed, it's fixated. It doesn't account for that change, where Jyotish does move as the constellations move.
It has a function in it, like they knew it before and then it was lost, and then they didn't remember, right? So it's like they've got little threads that lead back to the same wisdom and knowledge, but it's like they didn't know, they lost contact with the fact that this isn't going to stay that way, right? What we're seeing up there when the spring equinox happened was Aries, when they started saying Aries for the spring, right? But they didn't realize that in 1500 years, spring would happen, and it's not in Aries, it's in Pisces now. They lost track of that. Okay.
So this becomes.
Just to use Jules again as an example. She thinks that, based on the Western orientation, she's a Capricorn. And so that was always, what I was raised with as well, but that's not true based upon Jyotish. Because as you've done my chart, and I in fact have Gemini as the sign that the dominant sign. say, so if we were, right now, if Rose was to give us her exact birth date in January, could you add the 42 days onto it, or was that, and then, no, because you have to look at the time and then go back and plot it, and then we'll see, and I suspect you won't be what you thought you have been.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Sorry. We're trying to make sure you guys hear these questions. So I'm like, questions that I'm running around with a cell phone to do, and then PC on mute so that there's no feedback, and then we will take him off mute when it's time for him to answer a question. Is that okay? Gals who are online?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, sorry.
That's fine.
So sorry. We're trying to work out all the bugs here. This is my makeshift technology system. So we're working it. We're working it.
You're doing great.
Okay. So thank you. Appreciate that. When you want to talk, when you want to put it on mute, when someone asks a question, just hit this, and then it's that button, and then unmute it when you answer the question. I'm sorry. I should have thought of this.
No, you're good.
I'm sorry.
No, and there's a lot of technology. This is testing it out. We have a better.
I don't want them to feel like there's all this dead space.
The part that I'm going to do a little tour here of what to do next, right? So, like I said before at the beginning, I do a class for ZenSpot, and doing that in a couple of weeks. And I talk about these 6 links. The first week, a little quick tour of that. I talk about each planet, part of ourselves each planet represents, and then I do its quality, and at each I kind of talk in those principles. And then once we know what the planets are and the signs are, we do a little workshop, which and puts them in the signs that, just anything that's in our imagination. So you'll have to put this thing there, right? And then you start doing it, right? So, which once we know that is house or more like what place.
Thank you guys. Sorry. Okay, hang on, let me just ask for 1 second here. So folks that are online, can you see us again? I'm sorry, it dropped off there for a minute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Is it? Is it perfect? Okay, great. All right, sorry folks, we'll get back to it.
The reflection from Grace's class is like,
this one, and I've done, like I said, my favorite thing to do is diagrams. So I've kind of taken these philosophies and learned the teachings, and I've done it. So I was like, I kept having to flip through pages and what's this, what's that, and I wanted it all on one page so I can kind of reference back to it. And so this is just the frameworks of what I was talking about, the gunas, the polarities, the elements themselves, and then the planets. And that's what we talk about that in week 1. And then get down each one down further. I talk about masculine and feminine as far as not like gender, but like masculine as in going out like the sun, and then going in like the moon, feminine, right? You have how you are receptive. And then this is my little diagram talking about the gunas, which are what we would call, what I say, the whys. Why do we do something? And I talked about that tamas being protective, right? We want to protect what we have. We want to overcome difficulty. We want to avoid difficulty, or what it's really good at is going into danger, right? So like a firefighter would be an example of that in the positive. And then the attraction stays about like wanting to be a part of another individual and sharing desires, sharing pleasures, and those kinds of things. So being able to interact with other human beings, we need rajas. And then sattva is about like trying to transcend, trying to be spiritual, trying to teach, right? Right now I'm embodying my sattva, right? Because I'm taking what I have and sharing it, right? Rather than the opposite tamas, where we would take what you have and extract it. Then I talk about the elements. You're going to cover this too, right? So I'll just do it from an astrological standpoint.
Perfect.
And so the elements themselves would be what I call the hows. How do we do it? Once we have a why, how do we do it? And the air element is about interaction and communication and movement, right? So that would be your salespeople, your customer service, and the bankers, and anything where you're trying to interact and interchange. So the fire element, if you just think about like air, we think about air and it's about movement, right? And then fire, what happens when we have fire? We have heat, we have light, and when we have light, we have distinction, right? So fire is about independence, and then also about taking action. And then it's where we have our CEOs, our leaders, our take charge people. And then the water element would be where we're more feeling oriented and intuitive, and it's where we have our teachers and we have our counselors and healers, right? Because they're able to kind of feel into what's happening, what's wrong with somebody, and be able to heal it. And then the earth element is a structure, an organization. You saw my planets and earth signs. So that's what I am. And so that's where we have our really hands-on people, the construction workers, the nuts and bolts people, accountants, those kinds of people that take the theory and the idea and put it into practice.
Architects.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so this is my fancy diagram, and it's talking about the planets in the chakras, right? So the Sanskrit word for planets isn't planets, right? It's graha, right? And graha means to grab. And so each one of these planetary energies is the keepers of our karma, right? So each one of those planets is keeping our karma, and when the cycle runs, it says, here's how well you're doing, here's your test. So Saturn would be related to the root chakra. And so it's about the primal needs, right? The fears that we've got, and then being grounded in existence, in reality. So that's when we're getting a Saturn lesson, we're getting how well are you facing reality?
Like right now?
Right now, we're getting a Saturn lesson. Yeah. And then Jupiter is related to the sacral chakra, and it is the planet and then also progeny, right? That's what we have in our chart. We reproduce. Really, what we want to do better for ourselves, and so that's what Jupiter helps us do, is to expand and grow into something better towards ourselves. Then we would go up to Mars in the solar chakra, and it's our action planet. To once this idea, so Jupiter has this abstract idea, I think I want to do that, and Mars says, do it. And so it's about taking action and then having the strength to take action when it's not easy, right? So when we know what to do and we don't do it, what happens in our chakra is we get frustration, right? Anger, frustration, that bubbles up. So when we have difficult energy with Mars, we have anger issues. Then up at the heart chakra, we've got Venus, and Venus is about being to not just know what I want and what's important to me, but what other people want and what's important to them, and how to find that common ground, right? And that's what we need our heart for, right? To be able to tell whether or not that what's right for me is right for them, and what's right for them is right for me, and being able to navigate that without over compromising or being totally uncompromising. Then up in the throat chakra, we've got Mercury, and Mercury is the communicator, and he is the planet that's closest to the sun, and it's the message that we are getting from the world that we're translating to our deeper self, and the message from our feels and be able to talk our thinking in our head, right? So people with difficult karma with Mercury have trouble with their voice and their story of what's happening, and really being able to talk about it. So, and both. So this is where we get insight, right, in our third eye. And so the moon and the sun are sharing the active and receptive qualities of the chakra. So the sun would be that power coming out, and then the moon would be our receptivity, of being able to kind of accept and allow the experience that's happening into our consciousness without rejecting or clinging. And then the crown chakra is kind of beyond all the gross elements and planets, and it's really how everything comes in from divine. So that was a quick overview, right? But I really just wanted to spend more time on that first part and then just kind of breeze through that, so that, because I know you guys are going to be learning about it from a different point of view, right? So with that, any questions?
That's good. I know, exactly. Let me get.
I'm just absorbing.
Maybe the question is, how do you absorb all of that?
I'm glad this is being recorded.
We are back. Actually, well, I'm gonna pause this for you, so it doesn't seem so dark. Turn on the light. Yep.
Are we taking a break? Or hello.
Hi, everybody.
So That's, did anybody have any questions for Casey right now? Any?
Is there anybody online that would like to ask Casey a question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, let's take a break.
Let's take.
And
And
we'll dial back in a little bit. Okay, so let's take a pause.
Okay, let's just take a pause.
That response is par for the course. I'm used to this. Like, I don't know.
Thank you. I think we should give her a name.
And hey, Dawn, I just want to make sure that you're hearing everything.
I'm hearing everything.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
Let me put you down here in the corner. All right, we're going to switch over now to PowerPoint. Can you guys see that online?
Not yet.
There we go. Keep you down there. All right. Aubrey?
Yeah.
Can you see?
Nothing yet.
Oh, I didn't. That's right. Thanks, Casey. It's helpful if I actually share my screen. Okay. All right.
Aha.
There we go. We got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Drag you guys whoop, down here. Reduce you. I don't mean to reduce you in life. I just have to reduce you on this. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Is everybody set now? We good?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Good.
All good.
Awesome. You want to grab a light? You want to?
Giovanni,
Yes,
will we
love.
get copies of these PowerPoints?
I will definitely give you a copy of mine. Can we share? Yeah. We'll put it in a PDF form and we'll send it off to you guys either tonight or tomorrow morning, okay?
Perfect. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Okay. Is this okay or are we at a weird angle? Okay.
It's too dark for you to write.
Is it too dark or?
If you want to.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we did the first part of Ayurveda. So there's a couple of slides here that I'll skip over, but the essence of Ayurveda can be captured in what is known as the Charak Samhita. And the Charak Samhita is one of the most ancient texts that comes out of Ayurveda. And one of the quotes that comes from the Charak is that true healing of any condition means to restore the mind, body, and spirit to their naturally balanced states. It continues on by saying that any treatment that attends only to the symptoms is not a good therapy. And the best treatment is one that balances the whole and does not create other disorders. Isn't that interesting? So do we do that right now in our current medical care? Yeah, going with no on that. So Ayurveda is looking at from the physical standpoint, trying to balance all of us in mind, body, and spirit from a physical manifestation state. So just as Casey had said that Jyotish is that energetic DNA that gives you the map of your karma and your dharma and the schedule of when that's going to play itself out over the course of your life, Ayurveda picks up with when we are in the ahamkara, when we're in the ego, when we're not in cosmic intelligence, we will eventually feel that physically in our body, and it will manifest in what is known as disease. So when it manifests in disease, then we are completely and utterly out of balance. And that's where Ayurveda picks up. Yoga, Michael, would you like to elaborate on how yoga is the piece in all of this? So we've got the cosmic DNA, we have the physical manifestation through Ayurveda, and then the yoga does?
So the yoga, I got to take you back to do I need to come over?
Yeah, come on over.
I will just go back to my analogy I made earlier when we were talking about you have a cosmic roadmap, you have then the Ayurveda piece as being the provisions and the yoga piece being the guide. That's how I would characterize it. So if you think of, again, the yoga is helping you to become aware of what is going on, and the provisions are helping to nurture the awareness. Without them, yes, and then the map itself is what will happen, assuming that you don't have a good guide and you don't have good provisions.
Perfect. Okay. So what is Ayurveda? Let's get down to some basics. So a lot of people don't even know how to pronounce the word. So I spelled it there for you phonetically, Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is comprised of two different words, Ayur and Veda. So Ayur is life and Veda means the knowledge of. And when we get into our ancient texts, we'll dive a little bit more deeply into the Vedas. And so Ayurveda comes from one of the Vedas known as the Atharva Veda. It's a 5,000-year-old healing system originating in India and focuses on establishing and maintaining balance between mind, body, and spirit. It is the oldest ancient healing system by far. A lot of people ask, well, what about Chinese medicine? Chinese medicine is about 1,000 to 1,500 years younger, if you would. And what Ayurveda recognizes is that each of us are unique, and also about the importance of proper health between those three main energies that we just discussed, known as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. We already discussed the concept of Purusha and Prakriti, how Purusha consciousness gives birth to matter. And we talked about the gunas. Rajas being passion or movement or energy, Sattva being that balance or that awareness, and Tamas being inertia or that ignorance. You have those notes, so we'll skip over. We talked about the Mahad and the ego. When we do not allow, when we're going against the grain, if you would, we are in the ego state, and when we are moving with it, then we know that we are in cosmic intelligence or the Mahad. Then we get to the doshas. So we're going to break down the doshas very specifically. And we know that each of them have elements that make them up. They have a time of life, they have a season, and they have very specific jobs, if you would. Vata is mostly responsible for movement, anything that moves inside of the body. Pitta, main responsibility is digestion. And that is not just the physical digestion, but also the digestion of our thoughts. And Kapha is our structure, the physical architecture of our body. Michael, did you want to add anything to that?
No.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Vata first. I'll give you some parameters around all of this. So Vata, as we said, is made up of the elements of air and space. The season that it is most manifest, that it exhibits its qualities the most, is between fall and winter. And that makes perfect sense because in fall and winter, there's a lot more air and space. There is the temperature tends to get colder or windier. There is no leaves on the trees. The leaves fall off in fall, and in the wintertime, there aren't any, and so there's more space in between the tree branches, et cetera, et cetera. Vata is responsible for movement, transportation, and communication in the body. So anything that is moving, transporting, and communicating, and its seat, if you would, the place that it is most central is the brain, the central nervous system, and the colon. I'm losing folks. Hang on. We're trying to rejoin this meeting. Come on, come on. Did I lose you guys that are online?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Okay, hang on.
Okay.
See where we are here. Oh, nope, I don't want that. Okay. Are you guys back?
Not yet. We can see you.
Okay, you can see me.
Yes.
Okay. All
But
right.
you're dark. You're really dark. There's no light.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
We're gonna get back to it.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna move you up here. Oops. And there we go. Can you see the screen again?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure we're still recording here. So hang on one second. Yeah? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do. Can't see. Hold on. Oh, there we go. So the qualities of Vata, or gunas, because remember, gunas also means qualities, are dry, rough, light, cold, subtle, and mobile. If we look at the structure or the qualities of air and space, those are represented in all of that. When it's very cold outside and there's a lot of wind, we tend to get dry on our skin or rough, as well as air and space being light, cold, subtle, and mobile. From a psychological standpoint, Vata can manifest itself through active communication, creativity, flexibility, and quickness of thought. And each of these doshas have a stage of life. It doesn't mean that they don't exist throughout your life, because they do, but the stage of life represents when they are their most prominent. And so for Vata, the stage of life that it's most prominent is 65 years and older. And the reason for that is what happens typically around 65, 67, 68 years old. What usually happens in one's life? There's retirement, yes? What else? Yep, you have more open space, more opportunities in your life. So there is this idea that, okay, all of the responsibilities that I've had with my life up until now, now I've had children, I've gone to school, I've worked a job, so I have way more time and space in my life. So when Vata is not functioning properly, how does it manifest itself in the body? What does unbalanced Vata look like? It can manifest itself in the form of spaciness, being ungrounded, maybe experiencing some ringing in the ears, numbness, dryness, fear. We're in a very large Vata state right now as a country, as a world. Insomnia, constipation, headaches, specifically tension headaches, stiffness in the joints, gas and bloating, and anxiety and nervousness. So when the Vata energy inside of us becomes imbalanced, it can physically manifest itself in these particular ways. Questions so far? No? Yes. Okay.
Oh, can I take the phone?
Yeah. Yep. Hang on one second. We have a question. Yes. Thank you.
It says the stage of life is 65 and up, so can you be in balance younger than that?
Absolutely.
In the Vata?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I'm curious.
Yeah. Those energies still exist inside of us. It's just that they become even more predominant as we get to 65 and older. Okay. Give or take a few months.
Well, yeah, because and so to that point is that when you start going through menopause, or males who go through their own version as well, you start to see things take place, and that actually happens earlier, you know, for a lot of folks. So at 65 is still, I would typically put it earlier, but
These are general.
general,
That,
yes.
that the Shastra is talking about. Because a lot of people, when Ayurveda was practiced, a lot of people didn't live that long. So, maybe the phone back here. Because I'm on mute here, so there's nowhere to go. Thank you. So then we move into Pitta. And there's Katniss. She is on fire. So as we discussed, Pitta is made up of the elements of fire and water, and the season that it's its most predominant is summer. That makes logical sense. It is the hottest season of the year, and that is when Pitta exhibits its qualities in its most divine, if you would. Oily, sharp, hot, light, moving, liquid, and acidic are the qualities of Pitta. And Pitta is responsible for our metabolism, our digestion, and transformation. And again, it's not just about food that we consume or liquid that we consume, but also the thoughts and experiences that we have in our day-to-day life. How are we digesting, metabolizing, and transforming our experiences? So if we walk into a high-pressure, high-heat office, how are we taking in that experience, digesting it fully, metabolizing it, and transforming it? What is the outcome of that experience? What's the transformation? Do we go home with more stress and anxiety, or do we understand when we're in cosmic intelligence, in the Mahad, that this is an experience and it will pass? And if we come at it from that perspective, like Beth was bringing up before, if we come at it from that perspective of, okay, you know, this is a heated situation and it will pass, I'm not going to attach to it, what we transform that experience into later on will be very different than if we're just like, I'm gonna be angry about this, because then we just live with more frustration and anxiety and anger. Okay, does that make sense? Pitta has a couple of seats, if you would, in the physical body, in the eyes, the blood, the liver, and the small intestines. So those are areas where there is usually a lot of heat. And psychologically, when Pitta is in balance, it can exhibit itself as joy or courage or willpower. And if it is out of balance, when we're not in the cosmic intelligence, when we are in the ego, then it can turn into anger, jealousy, and mental perception of believing that something is what it is when it's not necessarily that, and skew our intellect. The stage of life that is Pitta predominant is between approximately the ages of 25 and 65, the fire time of life. Most of us are kind of in that category right now, where we are on fire doing all of the things it is that we are doing in our life. We are running businesses, we're having children, we are going to school, we're changing jobs, we're getting new jobs, we're starting different careers. So everything it is that is active and out there in the world. So when Casey was talking about masculine and feminine energies, not from a gender perspective, but from an energetic, Masculine energy is being very out there and putting energy out there, like the sun, very solar. The sun obviously is heat. It has pitta elements to it. Whereas rather than being more internal and going in like the moon is, with being more reflective. Any questions so far? Okay. So what does imbalanced pitta look like? So when pitta gets out of balance, it can physically manifest itself in the following ways. Heat in the head, you've all heard that expression, oh, what a hot head. Red or irritated eyes, nausea or vomiting, migraines, insomnia, bleeding gums, acne, anger or criticism, irritability, an acidic stomach or acid reflux, an overactive thyroid, and inflammation. When heat is on the rise in the body and is in overabundance, depending on, again, your cosmic blueprint and how you are in the world, whether in cosmic intelligence at one point or not, or in the ahamkara, these can manifest themselves physically. And then finally, kapha. So kapha dosha, as we said already on the whiteboard, that the elements of kapha dosha are earth and water. And the time that kapha dosha really exhibits itself is actually right now. We are in the kapha season, which is the late winter and the spring. And kapha's qualities or gunas are moist and cold and heavy and dull, soft, sticky and static. And so if we look at, if you put earth and water together, you create what? Mud. Exactly. So, and mud has those qualities of being moist and cold and heavy. And if you are living in Boise, Idaho at this time of year, it can't figure out what it wants to do. Does it want to be heavy and dull and soft and static, or do we want to have more heat? Because it seems like we have micro springs interspersed with winter. Kapha is responsible for the structure of your body, the strength or your immunity, if you would, and the lubrication of your body. And its seat, or where you can see most of kapha, is in the chest, the throat, the lungs, your head, lymph, fatty and connective tissue, ligaments, and tendons. So things that have a stickiness to it, some elasticity to it. And the kapha can often reveal itself as mucus or phlegm or some sort of liquid inside of the system. When, from a psychological standpoint, when kapha is in balance inside of us, we are loving, we're patient, we're forgiving. And when we're not at our best, when kapha is out of balance, we can be greedy and really get attached to either physical things or attached to emotions or points of view or people. And we can also experience some mental inertia where we feel stuck. The stage of life for kapha that it exhibits itself the most, and again, it still exists throughout your entire life, but the stage that's most predominant is from birth until about 25 years. And that's when we are growing, we are developing, we're getting structure physically, we're getting structure mentally and emotionally in our lives, and we are in that growth space. So when kapha is out of balance, from a physical standpoint, what are some examples of how it can manifest? It can manifest itself in the form of obesity, congestion, in the form of colds or coughs, edema, lymphatic congestion, cold and clammy hands, profuse sweating, a stuffy nose, an underactive thyroid where things feel kind of inert and we can't get moving, we lack energy, in the form of cysts or any kind of growth kapha is responsible for. high cholesterol, diabetes, and depression. Any questions so far? And Michael, can you tell us what pages in the manual that these are? So if everybody who's online and in class in person, you can look at your training manual, and all of these things are being reviewed on. Go ahead, Michael.
So the beginning of the Ayurveda section you will find in your manual is on, yes, 53. And then if you continue on the journey, the gunas are on 57, followed by the elements on 58. And then we get to the doshas and the elements on 62. And then the Ayurvedic clock on 64.
So the whole Ayurveda section of all of that starts at what page and ends at what page?
53, yes. And runs all the way through until no, that keeps going until 70 and through 73.
Okay.
And then even then we could talk about some of the other things following that as relevant to Ayurveda.
So what I'm going to ask is that this evening and over the rest of the weekend is that you read that Ayurveda section. So in addition to receiving this PowerPoint, refer to your manual and read it, review it, so that these concepts are things that become regular in your mind. And so what page is the Ayurveda clock, Michael? 64. Okay. So if everybody turns to page 64 in their manual, and which discusses the Ayurveda clock. And I'm just going to go over it briefly here.
8:30. This is different clock in your manual.
Yeah.
This is more thorough.
Yeah, the clock that's in the manual is more thorough, but we're going with it. So you can look at the one that's in your manual. So the Ayurvedic clock denotes the fact that the doshas and the qualities of the doshas and the functions of the doshas are operating 24 hours a day. And if we looked at the 24 hours and we divided those 24 hours up into 2 sets of 3 slots of time, it would come out to what we have here, known as the Ayurveda clock. And the Ayurveda clock is very similar to being, is relevant in the same way as circadian rhythms, if you would. So if we are to start at the bottom of the Ayurveda clock where it says 6 a.m., a little prior to that, maybe before sunrise, and we discussed this yesterday, prior to sunrise is considered the auspicious time of the day. And the auspicious time of the day is when the universe, excuse me, is at its most peaceful, and is the time in which we can connect to consciousness. We can connect to our personal consciousness and that connection to higher consciousness. So when Prakriti, matter, connects with Purusha. And this is a wonderful time to do pranayama practice, to do asana practice, to meditate, to chant. It was seen by the Ayurvedic Rajas and the yogic rishis and sages to be the time that we are closest to God and the time to celebrate our existence. The Ayurvedic clock denotes the fact that we are born every morning, we live a life throughout the day, and then we die at night, and then we are reborn. So sleep, metaphorically, not in reality, because hopefully you wake up, but sleep is considered sort of our mini death throughout a 24-hour period. Then we move on to sunrise. And I wanted to note the fact that we know that seasons change. We have spring forward and fall back in the United States. And so I want you just to keep in mind that these hours are give or take an hour or two. Just giving you some general parameters. The kapha time of day begins at 6 a.m. and goes until 10 a.m. and then again at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So it has 2 4-hour time periods. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, when kapha, those qualities of structure or the functions of structure, strength, immunity, and lubrication are beginning to develop in the qualities of kapha, of heaviness and a little bit wet and inert, if you would, are starting to be reborn again. So the kapha time of day from 6 to 10 o'clock in the morning, this is a great time of day to get our bodies moving. We're waking up, we're wiping off all of our previous evening's death. So this is when we wash our face and we take showers and we brush our teeth and we get our body moving, maybe doing exercise. It's a great time of day to really start getting the structure of our body, our bones, our tissues, our ligaments, and everything moving. Then we move into, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we move into the pitta time of day. This is the fire time of day. This is the digestive time of day. And it has 2 time periods, from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, and then again from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And the pitta time of day, the digestive time of the day, it's recommended between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. that you eat your largest meal. The sun is at its highest point of the day between that time period. And so we want to take advantage of the heat and our high digestive fire and our metabolism. So eating our largest meal of the day during that period is a great thing to do. It's also the time of day when we're really doing a lot of things. We're running errands, we are at work, we are answering text messages and emails and communicating with people. And pitta time is set up to do that. It's when we have our highest amount of energy. Going around the circle, we then drop into the vata time at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And if anybody is anybody in the United States, usually around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden we start getting a little tired. And it's like, oh, I don't have that energy. And so we can do one of 2 things during that time. We can either grab a triple shot of mocha and try to truck through until 5 or 6 o'clock, which is not recommended from an Ayurvedic perspective. Or we can begin to wind down our day. This is when our brain functioning is starting to move from being very active to the beginning stages of being very reflective. Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about the brain waves that are happening at that point in time, in the vata time, or you want to wait on that? Okay. So brain functioning begins to slow down. And so between 2 and 6 o'clock at night is really a great time to be reflective. It's a good time, if you can, to begin to wind down your business day, to start taking some notes about some tasks that maybe you'd like to accomplish the next day. It's a good time to meditate in the afternoon, to breathe, and to maybe do some light activities such as walking in nature. We circle back then at 6 o'clock at night. And also, let me back up for a second, also that vata time between 2 and 6 is really when we're getting into family time. Maybe people are picking up kids from school, and school is usually getting out between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And this goes according to what the agricultural clock was, back in the day when we would rise with the sun to farm. We would work during the main portion of the day, and then we would begin to settle down before the Industrial Revolution, where we had electricity 24/7. So the vata time also is preparing us to have dinner or supper. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's recommended that you have a lighter supper Pitta time of day is the largest meal of the day, and the Kapha time is a light breakfast as well, enough to get you to lunchtime, if you would, but not so heavy that it's going to increase your heaviness, if you would. Then moving out of that evening Vata time, we move back into Kapha time, and this is when we go from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. And we start to experience heaviness again, because most of us are really winding down and getting ready to go to bed. Recommended from an Ayurvedic perspective to get into the habit of going to bed anywhere between 9 and 9:30, so that sleep happens between 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night. Heaviness starts to set in, and it's the natural body rhythm. Staying up all night is only going to cause more imbalances. And we want to stay in that rhythm and get to bed before 10, because we then hit the Pitta time of day again from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. And this is when hopefully you are asleep and your digestive thoughts and processes are happening while you're sleeping. So you're not inhibiting the digestive process. If you are staying up past 10 o'clock or eating dinner very, very late, then you will not go through a proper digestive process, and chances are you'll wake up feeling a little bit groggy, maybe quote unquote hungover, if you would, and or not feeling comfortable in the digestive tract, perhaps feeling like you've got some heaviness in your stomach. So you don't want to miss that Pitta time of the day. You really want to be able to be asleep so that the body is in a calm, static state, and all of the digestive processes in their natural way can happen without them being inhibited. We wrap back around at 2 o'clock in the morning back to the Vata time of day, and this is when our deepest sleep should be happening. And dropping into sleep on a deeper level, which would be, what stage of sleep would that be, Michael? Is that delta? Theta. Theta, and then into delta, where the mind is really going back into cosmic intelligence. And this is when we begin to sort of reconnect with our higher states, and it can form, it can develop in the form of dreams, and it also allows our body to be in full relaxation, getting the nourishment it is that it needs in mind, body, and spirit.
Actually, there's a scientific process that in that deepest sleep time, my brain just went away. Your cerebrospinal fluid is washing your brain. That's correct. So it makes so much sense in that Vata time when the brain needs that rest and that relaxation. It's literally washing the brain at that deepest sleep, that delta.
And it ties in perfectly with how Vata is responsible in the brain and the central nervous system. So that washing is like a little car wash. Right, and movement. Absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Is everybody with me so far? We're almost there. Okay. You gals online, you okay? Is anybody out there?
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay, good. All right, just making sure. Don't want to lose you. So then there are three, how shall I say, byproducts, if you would, of the doshas. And tomorrow I'll draw a little map and take a picture of it to share with everybody who's at a distance. But ojas is the byproduct of kapha. And ojas happens at the very sprouting of life, and it is our purest intelligence. And it is the essence of all of the tissues of our body. For all intents and purposes, it is our mojo. It is the juice of life. And when ojas is balanced in the body, it creates all movements that are free and perfectly coordinated. We have a clear voice and complexion. And externally and internally, the activity of the organs and senses becomes self-referral, intelligent, and evolutionary. Ojas, for all intents and purposes, is akin to our immune system. It gives us strength and an immunity, and it maintains the integrity of the body. And we can tell when we have, or somebody has good ojas by, and how it manifests itself as sort of a glow or a vibrancy of health on their skin. So if you ever see anybody, or even yourself, go away on vacation and they're not dealing with the stress of life and the day-to-day, and they come back and they look so well rested, their ojas, or their energy, or their immunity, if you would, has been boosted. Ojas helps create perfect digestion, and our biological strength of our tissues depends on it. So all of the tissues of our body depend on high quality ojas. If our ojas is depleted, if our mojo, if our energy is depleted, then our tissues begin to suffer from imbalance, if you would. So, and you can just see what it's like when you get a cold or you get the flu or any kind of sickness. We feel very heavy. We don't have that glow. Sometimes we feel like a walking zombie. So, and that's when ojas has been depleted. And ojas is not just this Ayurvedic theoretical term out there, but rather it is a protoplasmic substance that is made up of albumin, globulin, and many of our hormones. So it's actually not just a make-believe thing, if you would. Oh, all right, I got to reconnect with you guys. Hold on, we're on pause here. Okay. Are you gals back?
Not yet.
Okay.
We see you.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see
Yeah.
your face.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to get back to screen share. Hang on 1 second.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Hang on 1 sec. Whoop. All right, there we go. And we're back. Okay. So Ojas the Mojo, if you would, and is a product of Kapha dosha. Then we have what is known as Ama. And Ama is a product of Vata dosha. It's a sticky waste product of digestion that built up in the digestive tract when your digestion is either weak or overloaded with the wrong foods. Ama can also build up in the mind on a psycho-spiritual level, causing us to have difficulty in thinking, processing thoughts, and emotions. So the reason why we equate Ama with Vata is because Vata is associated with the brain and the central nervous system. And if we have negative or difficult thoughts or things that we're struggling with, they start in the mind, and then it will manifest itself into the physical body. So we can literally think ourselves to health, or we can think ourselves sick. And so Ama, it manifests physically in the form of a sticky waste product, but it can also be built up in the mind, which can actually cause things like brain fog. When we get very obsessive with thoughts, or we feel stuck, or we feel inert, we can develop Ama in our minds. And so how do we prevent Ama from developing? There are some things that we can do, and we'll talk more about this in the Dinacharya. Whoops. So you can prevent Ama from developing by maximizing your digestion, taking in only the purest, whether that's in the form of food or relationships, and optimizing your environment for digestion. So what is your home kitchen like? What is the restaurant that you choose to eat in? What is your office like? Who are the people that you're interacting with? Are they amagenic? Are they full of toxicity and sticky grossness? Or do you have people in your life that are very positive and uplifting? Sticky grossness, I'm sorry, that wasn't exactly the most professional word out there, but we're going with sticky grossness, okay? And we all have those people in our lives. We have amagenic people in our lives, and they could be family members. So Ama is a product of Vata. And then finally, we have Agni. And Agni is our digestive fire. And it's one of the most important principles in the ancient science of Ayurveda. And the reason for this is that Agni and our digestion, or our gut, if you would, is linked to the brain. And the gut is often considered the first brain. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, it absolutely is the first brain. The belly button is where our umbilical cord was connected, and our mother breathed life and gave us nourishment. And so she was responsible for our Agni while we were in the womb. And so Agni broadly refers to our ability to process all aspects of life, including food, experiences, memories, and sensory impressions. And it comes from the English word to ignite, like we ignite a campfire. If our Agni, or our digestive fire, is strong, we're able to digest food efficiently and easily assimilate our daily experiences. However, if our Agni is low or weak, our body won't digest well, and it creates a toxic residue, or ama. So poor Agni creates ama. So there's the relationship between the two. From an Ayurvedic perspective, we have what is known as the 4 pillars of health. And the first one is sleep. If we do not get restful sleep, we cannot digest and assimilate our experiences. And then our ojas goes down, our mojo goes down, and our digestive fire goes down, and our Agni, or the toxicity, will go up. The second pillar of health is good digestion, so constantly stoking our Agni, if you would, making sure that our digestive fire is in good health. And when that's in good health, then our ojas, or our immunity, goes up, and ama, or toxicity, comes down. Same thing with elimination, eliminating in all of its forms, in the form of sweat, in the form of urine, and in the form of feces. Having regular elimination has a relationship to our digestive fire, our Agni, which will ultimately have a relationship to how much ama, or toxicity, we have in the system. And all you have to do is think about a baby wearing a diaper. If a baby is frustrated, what do they do when they have to eliminate? They cry. Exactly, and they make the face, right? The face is like, I'm really frustrated, like I really want to get this out. And then like they eliminate, and then how do they feel? Right, they're all like happy and jovial and the whole thing, right? So just think of it the same way. If you can't poop, or if you're not eliminating on a regular basis, you're going to feel pretty cranky. And that can back itself up all the way to your brain, where you get brain fog and you don't feel comfortable and irritated very easily, or you just kind of, have these brain lapses, brain fog. And then finally, purification. And there's a whole litany of what purification looks like from an Ayurvedic perspective. In the form of panchakarma, we're not going to go into that because you don't need that for the purposes of this, but also purification as it relates to sweat on a regular basis in the form of exercise and movement, as well as for women, the menstrual cycle that happens every month. There's a purification process that happens. And then men every 6 to 7 weeks has a menstruation cycle, if you would. So going through that purification process as well. And so we talked a little bit about sleep. I know, isn't he cute? He's so cute. I love him. So quality sleep acts as a rejuvenator of the mind and the body, enabling us to function at peak levels during our waking hours, and it enhances our ojas, if you would. Perfect sleep has been achieved when a tired mind is totally disconnected from the senses. So when you have those deep sleeps during the Vata time where you're just like, wow, I don't even know where I went, or I think I had a dream, but I don't remember any of it. When we only have a partial disconnect, when we kind of have restless sleep, the quality of sleep is adversely impacted. And then digestion, and then elimination, like a beautiful bathroom right there. And what we already discussed, and then purification in the form of the 5 actions, or panchakarma. And I'm going to leave it at that, because in your manual there is what is known as a daily routine, or a dinacharya, if you would. And we will continue with that maybe briefly tomorrow. Okay. Any questions, gals online or people here? We are almost at the top of the hour. Yeah, if you could turn on the light. Thank you. Hi, I'm back. So, any questions or anything, folks? We good for right now? Okay. Yeah, they are a little stuck. But. All right, so we will pick up tomorrow. Asana starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. Do not eat, as per Michael. Are there any, Michael, why don't you come over here and give any, I'll have you sit here so that you can see them and you can talk in there.
I just recommend that you don't eat before. You can have, if you want to eat something, have half a banana if you feel you absolutely need it, and some warm water, maybe lemon. But other than that, I wouldn't recommend anything. So we will do 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., which will be, there will be some asana, then there will be pranayama and meditation and maybe mantra. Yes. And then you'll have a break to go and have your meal, your big meal for the day.
The big meal at 9?
9 to 11. Yes, because we have to fit it in, and so then I wouldn't encourage, well, you can eat between 1 and 1:30 after that. But yes, snacks. But again, from an Ayurvedic perspective, snacks are not something recommended. So, but well, so yeah, so I know it's a while, but see, that's the thing. You want to allow for 3 to 4 hours after eating, not putting anything else in the body, because otherwise you just keep compacting, and then you get toxins that develop ama, basically. So that's going to be your breakfast break time. 9 to 11. Yes.
10 to 2. Yeah. So we're right. We'll be stopping right in the beginning part of that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of in the right frame, and then you can lay on your left side, right? Okay. For 15 minutes as well. So that's just wear something that you can move in. Correct. They're going to be on their respective.
Yeah. Grace
side.
will not be unless she wants to fly in from Denver.
So they'll be in the virtual.
We'll put you in the virtual
world.
universe. Yes.
Yeah.
So do you suggest that we're like on the floor with our computers?
You'll
or?
be. Yeah, just you can have whatever you need for a mat if you want a mat, or you just have like a rug or something. But we'll be standing and doing floor postures. So if you have knee challenges when we do come to the floor, or you're bony like I am, it's kind of nice to have extra padding, especially if it's concrete or wood.
But also what she's asking about was with their computer. They're going to have to adjust their computer.
Oh, right, your computer, that's right. So if you can just like set it, you can have it like set on a little table at first and then alternate and then set it on the floor, yes, and then that way you can see. Such a helpful be technology here.
Oh yeah, I will not unfortunately be practicing. I will be running around making sure that
one teaching can't do that really effectively.
Yeah. So.
Any other questions?
No
coffee.
No coffee.
So no coffee until 9.
Especially
until 9, exactly.
Is it caffeinated? Oh. 8 cups? Holy cow. Ooh.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Have a lovely evening.
Have a lovely evening. We'll see you at 7 a.m.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.